Katie, let's talk about emerging markets, and I particularly am eager to talk with you about India because it's something you know a lot about. You just got back?
We did. We just took a group of clients there and met with leading CEOs and policymakers a couple weeks ago.
And what did you find?
We found reason to be hugely optimistic about India. And taking a slight step back, I just want to say that we do think that particularly U.S. clients should think about India in the context of broader emerging market exposure. So we're advocates of clients getting broad EM exposure, with India being an important part of that. We are very bullish on the prospects of India. Our trip to India reinforced our view that this economy has the capability of growing at 9 to 10%, and there's not a lot of that going around the world.
Where is it now, 7.5?
That's right, yeah. And as you and I were just talking about during the break, inflation signals are actually quite positive. So 3 key takeaways from our trip there. What I would say is that first and foremost, monetary policy can continue to be accommodative. So we did meet with the central bank governor, and he made it quite clear if they stay down the path of fiscal consolidation, we're going to get accommodative monetary policy, good for equity markets. Point 2, demographics look very attractive. 1 million people entering the workforce in India every month for the next 15 years.
It's an amazing number, I think.
Yeah.
See, I remember the line from Katie's firm, and it was that in Japan they sell more geriatric diapers than they do baby diapers. So if you're long geriatric diapers in Japan, I just wonder what you're long in India.
You should be baby diapers is a good product to own in many emerging markets with that attractive demographic. 70% of the people are under the age of 30. So, and demographics highly correlated to long-term growth prospects. And then the final point I would just make is infrastructure. So that's been talked about for a long time in India, but really going around the country, meeting with all these CEOs and policymakers really built up our belief that we're on the precipice of something quite important. Already they're laying 30 kilometers of roadway a day in India. That's up 3 times over the past 5 years. And then the other opportunity that's kind of interesting is in the telco space. 1 billion cell phone users in India. More people have a cell phone in India than they have access to a toilet, for example.
Matt Miller?
Yeah, well, I just have a chart here that shows flows are coming drastically out of India over the past half year. And I wonder why. Like, what are we missing here? Because as I said earlier, it seems to be the only left standing as far as the BRIC countries are concerned.
Yeah, I mean, therein lies the opportunity, right? So we've had a lot of investors voting with their feet against emerging markets, record outflows in India in particular. And really, this is just a reflection of people being scared and the risk-off environment. So this is the moment we would encourage people to be bold, to stick with positioning, and to add to it. Because most U.S.
So it's merely risk-off? So,
can I just tell Katie,
what's the rationale?
If you want to access this chart on your Bloomberg, you can. G hashtag BTV space 318.
I would actually like you to make the chart look differently with the flows coming in.
Well, maybe you can. Maybe you're doing that on Go right now.
So what is the rationale, all those people? Is it simply just it's risk off?
Yeah, I really do think it is risk off. I mean, emerging markets do more poorly in an environment where there's less risk appetite, and people are reacting to that. And when they're scared, they're buying gold and they're selling emerging markets, and you're seeing that in the outflows.
How much of it is disappointment about Modi
Yes.
and the reform process and how slow it's been compared to what people wanted to see?
Yeah, I mean, clearly there was a lot of optimism based into this government. I mean, if you actually look at India equity market performance, to be fair, rallied 4 months before his election and has actually outperformed developed markets through today. So there is good, some of that good news baked into it. But I would say, again, being on the ground, meeting with people, expectations may have been high. We do actually think a lot of these reforms are going to get pushed through, and we're starting to see some real progress, like the progress I pointed to on infrastructure.
Well, what is your biggest concern, though? It's not all rosy. You have to have some fears here.
Yeah, I do think that the execution, that the bureaucracy doesn't stand in the way of the reforms the government wants to put through. That's something we're continuing to track very, very closely. If you saw a big reversal in commodity and that started to put pressure on the fiscal situation, that would clearly be a negative if monetary policy couldn't be accommodative. And then, just making sure that all these people entering the workforce from a demographic perspective can be put to work productively. But again, I come back to the fact that if you're willing to take a long-term perspective, the investment implications here at the overall equity market level positive.